Hello, everyone, and welcome to our True Methods webinar series, your 2018 MSP Business Plan. My name is Bob Penland, and I'm joined by Gary Pica. Hey-o!
Heyo!
How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing awesome. It's business planning time, Bob, or as I
Yeah.
like to say, the most wonderful time of the year. So why don't you do a little housekeeping and then we'll start rolling.
Yeah, so you can listen in on VoIP or you can dial in on the phone. If you dial in on the phone, make sure you enter your audio PIN, which can be found in that GoToWebinar control panel. Also in that control panel, there's a questions box. If you have any questions, just type them in there. We'll either answer them in the background or we'll bring them up live. We are recording this session and we'll provide a link through email that you can go back and watch at your convenience, usually within the next 1 to 2 days. So you'll get that in your email so you can go back and watch it. And I think that's it. Let's get going.
Yeah. So, Bob, we could talk about business planning all day, right? When specifically around MSP business planning, I've been doing an MSP business plan for pretty much 20 years. First with the first MSP that you and I worked together in, that I eventually sold to Mindshift, and in our current MSP that we do not work in day to day, right? We have two partners that work in the business every day because we're full time here at True Methods, but that's really our role in that company. We'll talk about that later today, but so this process, and we've taught it to hundreds of people, super important, really a baseline. So this is one of those webinars where if you can take just a few takeaways and implement them next year, you'll make changes in your business you wouldn't have made otherwise. So that's why we love this. I'll bring this up at the end, but if anybody wants more information about how we're helping people, we're going to talk a lot today about your business plan and what are the key drivers, and it'll get down to some things around profitability and sales. And we have built a platform called My IT Process that builds value into your offering. And it powers today, this platform, 20% of the MSP Mentor Top 100. And so if you want more, if you don't know what it is or how we're going to use it, we'll allude to it today, but really we're talking about business planning. So we're only going to talk about the concept, and we're going to talk, spend the rest of the time helping you with your business plan. But if you want more information on this, gary.promo@truemethods.com, TRU Methods, and someone from my team will reach out and tell you how we're helping people build their value in sales. So I want to start off with this, Bob. Having a business plan does not ensure that you'll grow faster or make money alone, but pretty much every company that achieves growth and profitability that we know, they have an actual business plan. So you can relate those two. And Bob, for you and I, not just with our with the MSPs, but also with True Methods, I've built three profitable, highly profitable, like best in class profitability, multi-million-dollar businesses. Really, I feel like this is the common denominator, right? This process is really the core. And as we look around at our members that are the top people, the ones with the highest margins and the growth that are achieving their long-term financial, they all have attention, don't they, Bob, on this process?
Yeah, if you don't have a business plan, how do you know whether or not you're achieving your goals or what steps that you're going to take to get there? You're just hoping that you're going to get somewhere else. And while hope is good, having a plan to get to where you want to get to is a lot easier than hoping for something to happen, right?
Yeah, and the big thing where we see it show up is in kind of efficiencies.
Yep.
We'll talk about a couple numbers that measure efficiency, profitability and leverage and reactive percentages of time. There's just a few things that the people without business plans, we see how different that one thing is that makes their company get stuck. So this is super important. So Bob, why don't we see where people are today? Let's get an idea of where people are with their 2018 business plan as a backdrop, and then we'll start diving into this content.
Yep. So here we got a poll on, have you completed your 2018 business plan? So yes, it's complete. No, but I'm working on it. No, but I'll start soon. Or no, business plans are silly.
Yeah, let's see how it turns out here.
Okay, we got about 60% of the people voted. We'll give another couple seconds here. Go ahead and pick your This is how we know people are paying attention too, right?
Exactly.
Good. Okay. We got close to everyone voted here. I'm going to close it up, and here I'll share the results. Good. Some people have it done and are either working on it or they're going to start on it soon.
Yeah,
And a
so
couple
only
people think it's silly.
only 4%, right? Have
Right.
it complete. There you see, and it's already December, right? So this is something
Yep.
you should be on. I'm happy to see that 60% of people are working on it. 30% of the people have good intentions, and really, this poll answer kind of tells why you need a plan, because it seems like very few people have completed it. Some have done some work or have intentions to do it. And that's what happens with everything, Bob. That's why you have
Mm-hmm.
a plan, is because we all have good intentions, but there's a big gap between attention and action. And these are some of the excuses I get why people don't get it completed, even if they have good intentions. Hey, I'm already working as hard as I can, and I have all this reactive work. So I don't have time or resources to even take action on a plan. So, like, why would I want one? Or they say, I just need to finish a few things first. Like, I call that the clear the decks mentality. Like, if I can just hire one more person, if I can just finish up this or finish up this one big project, then I'll have time to work on my business. But Bob, I've been in business for 20 years, and the day hasn't come where I've walked into the office and been like, oh, listen, there's no tickets, there's no emails, there's no customer or employee issues. I have nothing to do today. You know what? I think I'll work on my business today. It doesn't happen. And if your company's growing, you're actually going in the opposite direction, right? Or people say my company is small, doesn't need a written plan. Every one of these reasons, these excuses, are actually the reasons why we need a plan. Because what a plan allows you to do, Bob, is to make changes and move your business forward based on its current environment. To think you're going to get to a better time when you can work on your business. If you had plenty of time, you might not need a plan. The reason is that we're changing the tires. All of us that are small business owners are changing the tires while the car is rolling down the highway. In order to do that, a plan allows you to make positive changes towards goal based on your starting point today. And this is the starting point for a lot of people. Here's the structure of business planning and how you should think about it. Vision, target, plan, action. Vision, like out 10 years, like where you do some soul searching about the purpose of your company, your core values, your personal life vision. Because if you're an entrepreneur, your business and your life are one and the same, right? And then 3-year targets, really important because it's a long enough period that you can have some mistakes and setbacks and still keep your eye on those targets and reach them, but short enough that you can still see that far in the distance. The 1-year plan, which is pretty much what everybody thinks of as a business plan, Bob. Everyone thinks that a 1-year plan. And then quarterly actions. So if you really think about this, the plan is important, but it's influenced by vision and target to make sure that that's the right plan. And it only happens if you work quarter by quarter, because that's where a plan becomes action. So that's kind of the way I think about it. Does that make sense?
Yep. Makes sense.
So the first thing you want to do is some preparation, and we have actually a video on this in our training session, but I'm just going to give 2 slides to kind of recap it. Review 2017. So review this year, and things you want to look at is what was your revenue by category? And by category, I mean how much monthly recurring revenue, and I'll even say within that, how much real monthly recurring revenue, the stuff that you bundled in and you're at the right margin, hopefully 70% gross margin. And then how much ORR, or other recurring revenue. These are other things at lower margin that are monthly recurring that you sell. Like, separate those 2 things. How much non-recurring services, how much hardware, and if you have any other revenue categories. Then what you want to do once you have your revenue by category, look at your gross margins by category. And this is super important, Bob, to know where you are, because a lot of people make assumptions. They think based on their pricing that they're pricing at 65 or 70% gross margin. But when they look at their actual gross margins, they're in the 40s or 50s. And you have to find out, like, why am I not capturing all those costs? The other thing is you want to make sure that your margin on your managed services is higher, right? It should be in that 70% range compared to your non-recurring services and hardware, because it is that additional gross margin and the right mix of services that's going to increase your overall profitability. So that's really important. Revenue by category and gross margin by category. Next, new monthly recurring revenue, or MRR sales. How much new sales did you have? How much churn did you have, and why? Did you lose some customers, and what was the reason for losing them? Look at your average all-in seat price and your average MRR. So if you take all of your monthly recurring revenue divided by all of the seats under management, that's your average seat price. So that's your average price. That's really, really important number. It tells you a lot about your value and your profitability. And then also average MRR is what's your average customer size? This is a really big sales and profit driver, as we're going to learn today. So is your average deal size 1,000 a month, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000? And I would say there, Bob, you can even look at what it is today, and I like to look at it what it was for new sales. So the customers that you got this year, were they at a higher price and average than your base? So are you moving in the right direction? Is that clear?
Yep. And there's a question from Morgan here about who do you recommend to be involved in this process? Is this something that you do with all of your staff? Is this something you do by yourself as the business owner? Who should be involved in this?
So I'll tell you our two businesses, how we do it. At both of our businesses, at our MSP, we start with the core business plan. We start with the four of us that are partners in the business. Here it's the leadership team at TrueMethods, but then we involve each department, okay, in terms of having them, based on that structure, have some input into what their goals should be, and making sure they align with our business plan, so that every quarter each department, centralized services, project, net admin, VCIO, professional services, each quarter they should have something, some rock, some improvement. And over the course of those years, those things should be things that are impacting the things that we want to do annually. Would you add anything to that, Bob?
No, I think it's really starting with the business owner, but then involving the key people and the leads in those departments. You want them to be participating in this process because we want them to feel like it's theirs, right? Like they've had some input and they're going to push that much harder to reach those goals.
Yep. And people, look, there's a bunch of structures out there. EOS has one, Gazelles. We happen to use, we have a coach. We use the Rockefeller Habit. So we're in the Gazelles world. We use the one-page plan here at TrueMethods and our MSP. Our other members, use others. There's two or three of them out there. They're all real good. They're similar in terms of their approach, but this is the things that we're teaching today, and what you look at is within those structures, but we're just going to show you the nuances and the math to simplify this just for an MSP business. Okay, so we've done some review of the previous year. Next, a little soul searching. Like, what's your 10-year vision for your life and your company? Like, if you could think out 10 years, what do you expect your company to look like? How big will it be? How profitable will it be? And what does your life look like if you're a business owner? Like, what's your role in the company? How much time do you spend? What choices do you have? And this will be different depending upon your age, right, and your goals. And really think about things like, why did you get into this business, in the first place? And where are you today with this business compared to where you thought you would be? I mean, I think a lot of people think they were going to get in business, Bob, and like 5 years later, they were going to be piling up money and all business owners make tons of cash, and and then reality sets in. Have your expectations changed? And I think this is really important point, and we're going to show this in the plan today, how you do this, but you got to put a price tag on your life's vision. So, if you want choices as a business owner, if you want choices with your time in 10 or 15 years about what you can do, time and money are really two sides of the same coin. And so one of the things that everyone has to think about, the center of all this, if you are a business owner, remember, your business is your job, but it's also your investment. So you need to think about this, Bob. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Any questions about this? Oh, they want a little more help on this? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Straightforward.
This stands for after tax dollars in your personal bank account. After tax dollars in your personal bank account. And this should be part of every business owner's long and short-term plan. And I think that everybody who got into business did it knowing that one of their goals was they were going to pile up some of this, but it hasn't been as easy as people thought. It's the hardest thing to do in business. Here's why. First, you have to sell something. Then you have to deliver it. Then you have to bill for it. Then you have to collect the money. Then you have to pay your payroll. Then you have to pay all your overhead. Then if there's anything left after that, you have to pay your taxes. After you pay your taxes, you have to pay your personal living expenses. This is what's left after all of that. And if you run an MSP business at the kind of margins that most people do, you can make a great living, but you're not going to generate a lot of this. We just saw some updated numbers, Bob, in our industry. You know, the top 25% of companies on average generate 18% net profit. Okay, that's pretty good. You can have a good living, maybe even generate a tiny bit of this. The mean is 8%. There, you can make a living, but you're not generating after-tax dollars in your personal bank account. And the bottom 25%, if they took a true owner salary, okay, are break even or worse. So there's no hope for this. And so you really want to make this, and we're going to start with this today to show you how you can work backwards from something that we call a liquid net worth goal. And what a liquid net worth goal is, how much money, and we're going to use 10 years for simple math, how much money or additional money, okay, than you have today, like do you want to have in the bank, excluding the value of your business, because you're not sure what that's going to be worth or if you can sell it in 10 years, or the value of your home. So this would really be the after-tax dollars in your personal bank account that you want to generate from your business. And consider life events like, do you have kids to send to college, or maybe an elderly parent needs to be taken care of, or you have a dream of a vacation home. So consider those things. So what we're going to do is we picked a round number of 1.5 million. That could be your number, or yours could be much higher. It's okay. So 1.5 million is what we want to have additional in the bank in 10 years. So how much post-tax dollars are required over those 10 years? And so we just divided it by 10 and said 150,000. So we're not complicating this and adding in the factor of the time value of money. You can do those things if you want into calculators on the internet, but we're making it simple. If we can make enough money to pay all of our taxes, pay our current living expenses, and have $150,000 left over, and we put it for 10 years, we'll get to that 1.5 million. Pretty straightforward, right?
Yep.
Okay. Next, what we want to do is that's our annual, we want to come up with an annual income goal. So how much additional annual income do you need to generate to get that 150,000 after taxes? So we use the 35% tax effective rate. You can decide what your effective tax rate are based on your tax bracket, where you're located. And we divided the 150 by 0.65 and said, okay, we need to earn an additional, assuming that you're making enough money and you're paying all your bills today, which I hope is the truth, right? You're paying your current lifestyle. You need to make an additional $230,000 to pay the tax on it to get to 150. Still pretty straightforward, Bob?
Yep, just math.
Okay. All right, this is an important slide because we're going to do 3 really important things. The first thing we're going to do is where we're going to relate your personal long-term liquid net worth goal. We're going to relate that to your business because that's where you're going to drive that revenue. And we said that how much annual revenue would be required for you to make an extra $230,000 so you can pay the tax to get your 150. So 230,000 divided by, we're going to make the assumption that you want to be in the top 25%, and you're going to run that business at that 18%. If you can do that at 18% net profit, you need another $1,275,000 of revenue in your business annually. Got that, Bob?
Yep.
So if
So
you're
this is on the new revenue, just to get to our goals. Again, assuming that we're paying all of our bills currently, and that's
yeah,
taking care of our current lifestyle. This is an addition. The additional revenue will be this.
yep. And so at 18%, if you were 2 million today, you would need to get to 3.275 in order to get there. Then what we did was we said, okay, how much of that revenue are we going to drive from MRR, recurring revenue? We said like 70% of it, because usually when you get recurring revenue, you get project work and some products. So we said 70% of that revenue is going to come from recurring. So we would need an additional $892,500 of recurring revenue. Then we divided that's an annual number, by 12, and we came up with an MRR goal. So now we're saying this, listen, we need $75,000 of new monthly recurring revenue. That will drive that nearly 1.3 of total additional revenue. And if we can get there at 18%, we're going to get the additional 230, pay our taxes, and we're on track. So make sure everybody understands what we did on this, because we did three things. We took the personal income goal and we converted it to a revenue goal. So now we took your goal and we put it towards the business, saw what factors determine that in terms of profitability. Then we took that, we turned it into a recurring revenue goal, and then we took it one step further and we came to something that is really manageable, which is our monthly recurring revenue goal. So far, so good?
Yep.
And this is really important because I feel like people's goals are really nebulous. Like, so many things have to happen in their business and there's so many variables. The key to an actionable business plan that people achieve is we need to get it into something that we can hone in on and say, look, we just got to drive this. And for us and our business as MSPs, it's always going to be monthly recurring revenue at the right price. Okay, so we're going to set a time frame. Now we're going to go and say, let's make that 75,000. Let's make that our target. So we're going to set that time frame of 3 years. We want to get there in 3 years. So to determine our 2018 goal, we just divided that by 3. Now, your goal may be higher than 75,000 based on your goals, and you might not just divide it by 3. You might say, hey, I'm ramping up my sales engine. So, maybe you need 150,000 and you're saying, hey, I'm going to do, 35,000 this year, 65,000 the second year. You might ramp it up. Okay. But just for our simple math, we just divided this by 3 and say, if we can add net, right? Net after churn, right? 25,000 for each of the 3 years. In 3 years, our run rate, we will be at that run rate. We will be doing better and better every quarter. Our margins will be increasing. We're moving towards that. And probably if we can get to 75, we probably can get to 100 and 125 over that time period. So we definitely have some, if you can hit your targets, you usually blow past your long-term goals, Bob, right?
Yep.
So this is conservative and a plan that if you can execute on it, you're almost assured of hitting your long-term goals and exceeding them. Then we can take it a step further and say, okay, so to hit that sales goal, what's the activity that's behind that? And this is something we use in our training program. It's a sales goal calculator. Up top, we said, hey, our goal is 25,000. Our average contract is 2,000 a month, and we have a 20% close ratio. So basically, we need about 1 deal a month. And what we know from managing and coaching people for all these years and training people, in order to sell 1 deal per month, at any given time, you need to have 4 or 5 deals worth 8 or 9,000 in your pipeline. I'm talking about they're in a 30 to 45 day close. Based on the close ratio to do that, you would need to have 60 first-time appointments. Need to go and meet 60 new prospects through the year. That's about 5 per month, about 1.2 per week. So now we've taken that goal and we've boiled it down to what has to happen on a monthly and weekly basis in terms of your sales activity. That's super powerful, Bob. That's how you turn a plan into action, right?
Right. It's about how you take something that's a really big number, 1.5 million, and you step all the way down to something that you can do every week, every day, to march you towards your goals.
And that's what this looks like.
Yep.
So like, listen, in doing this for years and working with, True Methods members and our people that are implementing my IT process and building their value, the first time they go through this process, here's what happens. They write down some big number that's always, a seven-figure number. They set a liquid net worth goal of, 1.5, 2.5, 5.5, some big number. And they compare that, like they've been in business for 10 years and maybe they only accumulated a small percentage of that. And it's scary for them. Like the most common thing when they write that number down and look at it, the most common feeling is nauseousness. Like they feel nauseous because the business that they've had for 10 years doesn't seem like it's going to generate that. Then we go through the process and we look at the after tax. Then we see that income number. It's still really big. It might be bigger than what they make today. And then we look at the revenue number, and then we turn it into MRR, and then it's that annual goal of 25,000. That seems something you can get your arms around, and then a monthly goal, and then all the way down to what has to happen at 1.2. And then slowly, as that logic goes through, and we see what has to happen in the short term to get there, the nauseousness starts to get replaced by excitement, Bob.
Right.
To say, that top number seems out of reach, but based on this logic at the bottom of this funnel, yeah, these are things I can work on this year, this quarter, right, this month,
Yep.
of things and changes and priorities I can make that can influence that. And if I do, all that other stuff will happen. That's the power of a business plan, Bob.
Yep. Absolutely.
But here's what I've learned. The biggest misconception about the MSP business is everybody thinks their problem is sales, Bob. That if they just had more revenue, they would make more money. And at some point, you will need more recurring revenue at the right price. But that is not the number one factor that is going to determine your financial future. It's actually your profitability. So your net profit percentage is going to have more of an impact on whether you achieve your goals, including your sales goals, okay, than the number of leads that you get. And if you can understand this process, the way we're going to explain it in the next few slides, and change your orientation, you can set up a plan that is way more achievable, way more efficient, and way more likely to be achieved by more people that we've seen as we've coached people and trained people over the past, 9 years. So take a look at this. The center, right, column here is our example at an 18% company. Look to the left, okay, at what happens at 12%. And we're saying the mean is 8% out there. So a lot of people fall in this 12% if they take a real owner salary. And we set these same goals. Look how unachievable the plan becomes. Instead of like almost 1.3 million that you need at 18%, you need almost 2 million of revenue. You need $112,000 of recurring revenue instead of 75. You need to sell $3,000, $3,100 every month compared to 2,000. It's a much more difficult plan to reach. Look on the other side, Bob. I ran our first MSP at over 30% net profit. So think about it. To get to those same goals, instead of 1,275,000 of additional revenue, we only needed 676. So our MRR goal only had to be 14,000 a year instead of 25,000. We needed like basically one customer every other month to achieve this goal. So the chances at that high margin of achieving your after-tax dollar goal go up astronomically to the point where at 12%, people just don't get there. They don't get there.
Right.
And at 20, 25, 30%, almost everyone does, Bob. Let me flip it back the other way and say that everybody can achieve the same sales goals. Look at what the result is. At 12%, you would generate long-term liquid net worth of less than $1 million compared to 1.5. And at 30%, 2.5. At 2.5 million, Bob, compared to 1.5, you have a lot more choices in your life for yourself and how you can take care of your team. Like, this is where people need to look.
Yeah, there's a dramatic impact.
Yep. Is that, you want to take that question now, or you want to wait till I get to sales?
Yeah, let's wait till sales.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think people can see from those last couple slides that your profitability is the leading indicator of your future growth, okay? Because high profit companies tend to grow more and more consistently, and it's also the leading indicator of your financial future. In our business, that's a people business, your profit is determined by leverage. And this is a term we use in our training program, that leverage is the amount of service revenue you generate annually per employee. So you want higher profitability, but you drive leverage because we're a people-based business. Let's give you an example. An average MSP with 6 employees would have about $600,000 of annual service revenue. That could be your monthly recurring revenue, true monthly recurring revenue, plus your non-recurring services. No products and no, monthly resale of stuff, just your services. So your leverage would be 100,000 if you divided that. So you generate about $100,000 of service revenue per employee. Okay, so we set a target of $150,000. So that same company with 6 employees would have $900,000 of revenue. So that average MSP, Bob, has $300,000 of unrealized profitability in their business. Think about that. That's more than the annual goal that we had in our example to generate, right? We said we only needed $230,000. In this case, it might not be sales growth. Now they might need some sales because they might have to replace some of their current customers with more valuable and higher paying customers. So there still could be a sales component, but this company doesn't have to go from, they're probably $1 million to $1.5 million, dollar company with with product, I think, whatever, $1 million business. They might not have to go from $1 million to $2 million to achieve their long-term goal. They might be able to understand leverage and go from $1 million to 1.3, get that higher leverage and achieve their goal faster and more efficiently. Does that concept that we're trying to make, is it coming through, Bob?
Yeah. Yep.
So the first thing you want to do is calibrate yourself, is figure out what your unrealized profitability is. Okay? And here's how you can do that. Take your total number of employees, not just techs, everybody you pay, including you if you work in the business. Multiply that by 150,000. Then subtract from that your annual service revenue. So we're almost done the year. You got a pretty good idea. Look at your true monthly recurring revenue and your non-recurring services only. So take out all your product and resale and compare those things. That is the unrealized profitability you have in your business. And before you spend a bunch of money on a giant sales plan, think about how you have a plan that prioritizes getting that unrealized profitability out of your business. Because to double the size, if you have a lot of unrealized profitability, Bob, and you're running a 12% company, rather than spending all the effort to try to double that business, it's better to grow it by just 50%, but double those margins and end up ahead of where you're going to be. That's the secret to this business. So there's 2 key factors, Bob. There's really 3, but I'm going to talk about 2. That impact leverage, that we see, that if you understand these 2 things, that 1, people's prices are too low. So their average price per seat, again, we call that all-in seat price. Take all your recurring revenue divided by all the seats or users you support. What is that price? It's too low, okay? Secondly, and related to it, is your reactive support hours per seat, or REM, reactive hours per endpoint per month. So the amount of work you have to do each month based on the number of endpoints or end users that you support is too high. That number is too high. We've calibrated it across our, thousands of people, have a pretty good idea what it should be. And what happens is when that's high, Bob, margins go down, but also value goes down. It's low value to the customer and the seat price goes down. So these 2 things are related. So if you can understand these 2 things, you can impact profitability, value, and then when you impact value, it makes it easier to sell more recurring revenue at a higher price. All make sense?
Yep.
So this is how we look at it. Like, we look at this value stack, and MSPs that have lower margins, they live at the bottom of this value stack in the MSP world, like traditional MSP. They do professional services. They have an RMM and remote backup. They have some centralized services and some cloud features. They do a little bit of consulting and they do support. Like that's what they do. And top MSPs, they live at the top of the stack. They've built what we call a technology success practice, and that is this concept of having network administration and or technology alignment and VCI, true VCIO, where they're doing continuous technology alignment with each customer. They're showing them the business impact of misalignments. They're helping that customer put together a strategy that impacts their business. They're spending more of their time and their resources at the top of the stack. And as a percentage, they're spending less of their time at those bottom of the stack. And that's what drives up value and allows you to start to increase sales. This is the center of making your business plan go. So let's look at those two pieces, Bob, and I think it'll paint a good picture. So if you look at this, these are 4 companies that all have 1,000 endpoints under management. And that top is how much time they have, their total time on all their tickets and alerts that they don't bill for, that are all included in their monthly fee. And you see company A has about an hour of REM. So they would need about 6 resources just on the support desk to support those 1,000 seats. So because of that, that makes their cost per seat about $32 just for support. That's really high, Bob. Okay, most MSPs have a cost per seat at a $45 if they want to sell at 150 at the right margin.
Right.
So if 32 of it just for support, you can't have high value numbers. Company B has half that RAM, so they have a $16 cost. And move on to company D is down to $8 and then $4. And if you look at it, what we see is kind of where you need to get to is company C. Now, you may not be able to calculate your REM today, but here's what you can do. Like, how many people do you have on your support desk? Plus, do they do all your tickets, or are other people doing support and alerts too?
Right.
So, like, our project people or VCIOs or other people. So take all the resources you have that are doing tickets, and if you're about 1,000 endpoints, you can calibrate yourself. That'll tell you what your REM is today. So if you have 1,000 endpoints under management and you have 4 people on your support desk today and some escalations, you're between company A and B, you have a value problem. Probably more appointments is not going to solve your problem. And that's why I tell people many times, you don't have a sales problem. You have a value problem. The sales problem is a result of it. And this is what happens. People that have higher lower percentage of time spent on that, like less people on the support desk, more on high value things, command a higher price. So again, here's 2 companies that both have 1,000 seats under management. One of them commands a price of $150 a seat compared to 100. So they generate $150,000 of MRR on the same 1,000 seats as someone who only generates 100. That's $600,000 a year, Bob. Different. It's dramatic, right?
Yeah. Well, you can't do a lot with 600,000 anymore these days, right?
And here's the other thing that I want to show you. With the same number of average seats, like average of 20 seats per client, look at what the average MRR is. So the average deal size is 3,000 compared to 2,000. I'm going to show you as we move on to sales now in a minute why remember that's super important, that just commanding a higher value raises what your average deal size is and how that plays into your sales plan. We'll tie it all together. So this is the process. When we talk about top of the stack, this is really the core process that we teach here at True Methods. We call it your superpower, which is building these 2 dedicated roles, Bob, right, of technology alignment and VCIO.
Yeah. So these 2 dedicated roles, there's 4 steps to this process. Number 1, focusing on the technology alignment side. You have to have a set of standards that you can evaluate your clients against and show where they're out of alignment. So that's that technical alignment process. So these are the places that they're out of alignment. And then you need to be able to take those misalignments provide them to a VCIO who can then assess the business impact. So based on what this client does, what industry they're in, their business plan, this is what the risk is potentially for their business, in addition to what other investments that they're going to make. And then you can develop a true client strategy, a long-term client strategy and budget. That whole process is a differentiator, and it's what allows you to build a business relationship and be at the top of the stack, be more valuable to your clients.
Yep. And so for people that work with True Methods, we have built a framework called My IT Process. That basically, it is where the technology alignment and VCIO roles live. They live in this software where they develop their standards, templates, they do the alignment, and quickly and easily can do the business impact and provide the reporting to clients to have that business relationship. Okay, let's move on to factors now. We talked about profitability. I think people get that, but it's also related to what impacts your ability to sell new recurring revenue. One, you got to have a sales plan. We're working on that with our members right now this time of year. It starts with some of the activity planning that we showed, like have to make some assumptions of, what do you want to, how much do you want to sell, how much recurring revenue, what's your average deal size, what do you think your close rate is, to determine the number of leads or first-time appointments you need. Then you need a sales process. We love ours. We have one that we've, honed and has been used by thousands of people. I'd love you to use our sales process, but you got to have a sales process that's repeatable every time, where every time you approach a prospective customer, you have a process you take them through to qualify them, to show them your value, and you get predictable close ratios at the right price. Then you need accountability. So that's a weekly sales meeting and knowing what things, you ultimately judge people on results, but we manage on accountability. That's how we teach people how to achieve their goals. And then finally, you have to know your sales math. And we showed you some of it, but let me just show you the simplest part of it, man. MRR goal, so what you want to sell in new recurring revenue for 2018 equals this. The number of first-time appointments, that's your leads, right? New prospects, times your close ratio, times your average deal size or average MRR. So if your goal is to sell $36,000 of MRR, you need to go on, and your close rate is 20%, and your average deal size is $2,500, you need to go on 75 sales appointments during the year. So you can see how many that is by quarter, by month, per week. How does that line up with what your current lead generation is? And that gap is really what you want to make your priorities to close that gap early on so you can get there. So, and you want to make this formula work for you. Like, look at this example, Bob. Remember when I said just by raising your price, you raise your average MRR? Here's why it's so important in sales. If your average deal size is only worth $1,500 and you want $36,000 in new sales, you have to sell 24 clients. And if you have a 20% close ratio, you need to generate 120 first-time appointments over the course of the year. If you're at $2,500 average deal size, you only need 15. So you just need 75 first-time appointments. And if you can get to 3,500 at our MSP, Bob, we're at 4,500, okay? You only need to have 11 clients and 55 FTAs. Are you more likely to generate 120 FTAs or 55? And part of this is not even targeting bigger clients. It's just increasing your value so that you can have command a higher price. And the combination of that and maybe just targeting a little bit, maybe people that have an extra 3 to 5 users along with the right price, usually can get you from the wrong average MRR to the one that's more achievable. And by the way, Bob, would you rather onboard and manage 24 clients for 36,000, or would you rather onboard and manage 11 clients? Which do you think is more profitable?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to onboard 11 than it is 24.
Yeah, and so what you have to do is like set a minimum. Like there has to be some minimum MRR number you start with to say, listen, if they can't spend $1,000, we don't do business with them. And then as you start to grow and build your value, as we tell people, as we teach them to build their superpower and they implement My IT Process and their value builds, they raise it to $1,250 and $1,500. At our MSP, we started at $1,000 4 or 5 years ago. Today, it's really $2,500. If you can't spend $2,500 today, it doesn't move the needle for us now. Like we're at $250,000 a month, right, of recurring revenue. But we didn't start that way. And, John said $4,500 average per client. You guys are gods. Um, we're not. We're not. We just started exactly where you were, John, and we focused on this process of building value. We developed our technology success process. We developed that role of technology alignment in the VCIO. Our clients saw the value. And just over the course of time, we went from charging, 120 a seat to 135 a seat, and now we're in the 150 to 160 range per seat. But it didn't happen overnight. We started with the process and we started with a business plan, and every quarter we executed a part of that plan until our belief system and our self-image changed. I did it once in the first MSP, and it took time in the second MSP because Bob and I don't work in it. We have a young guy in his early 30s who's the president, and it took time for his self-image, to grow into this
Yeah,
value
and small changes over time can have a big result after you look back over the course of years. And we're here, yeah, we're an overnight success over the course of 5 years of working on it, right? So that's all it is. It's having the plan and making incremental progress.
But I can tell you this, if you don't lower your REM, if you don't increase your value, if you can't separate yourself from the competition, you can't do any of this. I don't care what sales training you go to, even ours, which I think is the best in the business. If you work on the things that we have learned are the core that move the needle first, everything will start to change over time. And it's not amazing, it's boring. Okay? Execution, like Bob said, every day and every quarter, and everyone can do it. So listen, when it comes to sales, when it comes to your plan, your business plan, you got to be accountable. You got to have discipline, okay? You got to have metrics. We have SMART numbers that we teach. It's a spreadsheet with 20 numbers on it that we have people look at once a quarter. You got to have meeting rhythms. So we have daily huddles. Everybody in our company is part of at least one daily huddle. Then we have weekly department meetings. We have monthly recap meetings. We have quarterly planning meetings and annual planning meetings. So we have a lot of meetings, but they're shorter, okay, to keep our whole team in rhythm. And that's what builds our culture. Everybody feels they're part of something that's really special, both at our MSP and here at True Methods. This process has made a culture because people, Bob, they want to make money, but more important, we all want to feel that we're part of something that's bigger than just us, and that what we do makes a difference. It makes a difference to our coworkers, it makes a difference to our customers, and it makes a difference in the world. And that's what this does. And we have two different perspectives, Bob.
Yeah.
Because we're involved in this process at True Methods and at our MSP. The difference is we don't work at the MSP. We work at True Methods every day. And it's a lot easier doing it with them when we don't work in the business, isn't it?
It's a lot easier to tell people what we should do, right? And advise and guide than it is executing on it every day. But if you want to achieve your goals, you have to figure out a way to execute, and you got to have a plan to get there.
Yeah, and so for us, we're really valuable to their process because we're a third party. We sit in there and we don't have all the emotion of the relationships and the customers and all that. We're just looking at the business, and so it's really valuable to them to have us there. And as the quarter goes on, we see when they stray, like, wait a minute, why are you working on that? That's not on our plan. Like, stop it. If it's not on our plan, we don't do it. Because if you're going to add something, you usually got to take something else off that plan. So here we work in the business. It's harder for us. So we actually have a coach who helps us, is that third party to help us do the same thing, who's not in our business that can help do that. So we run our winner circle, our peer groups. That's what they do for each other. So they provide that outside accountability. And that's why those companies move faster and have the highest margins. They're the guys that are the top 20% of the MSP mentor. It's not that they're any smarter or talented. They just have more discipline and perspective around the right priorities so their business go faster. And this is what we've learned, Bob. The real impact of business planning takes time to fully realize. You just don't do a business plan and everything changed or go one quarter. You do it quarter after quarter, and you look at your business in 13-week periods, and you get better and better at this process. And then you need to keep getting better at it, because when you're successful, your business grows, it gets more complex, and it requires a higher level of discipline. So the more I learn about business planning process, the more I want to learn. And after 20 years of working on this, I'm saying our company grows, I need to be better at it. I still need to work on this and make it one of the core things that you and I set as a priority, Bob.
Right. Yep.
So how can True Methods help in our, we have two things at True Methods here. We have our primary thing that we offer for people is MyIT Process. That is our software platform where you build your technology success or superpower. So those roles and that process we talk about to add value and drive down noise are built into that. But we also have 200 hours of a training portal that on all aspects of the business, but one part of it is we have a video series just on this business planning process, every aspect of it, and also we have a bunch of tools that you can use that help you with that. So in summary, and then we have a bunch of questions we want to get to. I left some time for questions because there's a handful of them. Think about this concept of target, vision, target, plan, and really focus on that action. Set a 2000 MS18 goal for MRR and the activities. Calculate that unrealized profitability, but focus on value. We call it superpower. That should be first, not forced. Focus on that first, because if you can increase your value, you're going to make your plan more effective from a sales standpoint, and you're also going to increase your margins, and you're going to lower the amount of revenue you need to achieve your personal goals. So real quick, we just tried to make this all about value, but I'm going to take 2 minutes to do a quick commercial for True Methods, why people do business with us, because our platform, MyIT Process, is the only proven framework to build your superpower or your value. That process of standards, alignment, business impact, and strategy. That's going to reduce reactive noise and increase your sales separation. That's what allows you to consistently build recurring revenue at the right price. And as part of MyIT Process, we give you access to 200 hours of role-based training content we've developed over 9 years, Bob. So if you just want to learn more about what we're doing at True Methods with our training and our software, send an email to gary.promo@trumethods.com, and someone from my team will reach out and tell you what you're doing. And we do have some special pricing going on right now with MyIT Process before the end of the year. All right, Bob, we got a little over 5 minutes, and I see a couple questions out there.
Yeah. So first one from Larry. So the plan depends heavily on the effectiveness of the salesperson or the sales team. Can you talk about how to incentivize the sales team to meet those goals?
Yeah, so one good thing about this, to sell a bunch of MRR, you don't need a huge sales team if you follow the process correctly. And to me, that falls into 3 things, like how will you generate leads? And we teach a process of warm lead generation, and we also teach a process of inside sales, so someone that can clean that database. And then the outside sales role is really someone whose only job is to get new people to buy recurring revenue. That's it. And then they move on. So if you set up that efficient process, you can incentivize them based on MRR. So they would get a percentage, both, inside person might get 1/3 to 50% of the first month's MRR, and the outside person would they both have some base salary, and then they get 1 month's MRR. So the more they sell of recurring revenue, you can pay them a premium. So they can do really well, make a bunch of money, and you can increase your recurring revenue at the same time. So the good thing about this is, even if you're looking, if you're looking to sell, everybody should set a goal of at least $25,000 to $35,000 of new MRR a year. That's the bottom. But we have many people that sell, between $40,000 and $150,000 annually of monthly recurring revenue. And you don't need big sales and marketing teams. You just need an efficient approach and a focused approach and accountability. And you need the right value so that your average seat price and your average MRR makes that formula more achievable, if that makes sense.
Yep, that's good. John was asking, how do you get to $100 to $150 all-in seat price? Is there a certain demographic that you're selling to, or what's included?
Yeah. So, John, it's not 100 to 150. It's 150, no 100. Okay. Because if you're offering, like I said, I don't want to get into a whole bunch of stuff. We have something called microeconomics, where you figure out your actual cost per seat, and you'll see that to make the margins to get to 70% where you need to be, you're going to need to be in that 140 to 160 range. Almost everybody is when they do the math. And so to get there, it's really a matter of value. And think of it simply this way: there's only so much value in everybody has an RMM, okay? Everybody has some backup solution. Everybody does support, and everybody has professional services where they do projects when required. So you're capped at what that's worth because it's a commodity now. Every single MSP does it. So the key to it is this process of technology success that you build on top of that around what Bob explained of standards, alignment, business impact, and strategy, where you develop a business relationship first and technical second. When you get there, the value proposition over time changes. So in every single marketplace, John, including yours, there's people that sell at $75 a seat, and there's someone else who's commanding 150 or 160 in every marketplace, because those top 20% of people, they have figured out that value proposition type thing. And that what we term and train, the way that we teach people, we call it that value stack. And if you understand the math and the roles in the process of a value stack, and you start to move more of your resources to those high value things, your whole approach to prospects and customers will change. And they don't really care. Once you show them the value, how you're helping their business. Remember, John, we're a small cost to our customers. If they spend $3,000 a month with you, they probably have $200,000 to $400,000 a month of payroll and overhead. So whether they pay you $3,000 or $4,000 isn't that big of a difference if you can show them how it impacts their business, not just their technology. That's what we do with, our approach and with my IT process. It's get you in that position so that you can change that mindset. Not easy to do in the beginning, but once you get there, you'll see that the people that sell the most recurring revenue as MSPs are the ones at the highest price because they have higher value. In most businesses, it's the lowest priced offering that has the highest value. But because it's inverted in our industry, really supports what we're saying today, Bob.
Yep.
Great question.
Datalog asked, can the inside and outside sales be the same person and get the same results?
No. The reason why is if you're an outside salesperson, in order to reach a reasonable quota, you need to be in front of warm leads. So you can't spend your time cold calling. It's not efficient enough use of your time. So we teach a warm lead process that they would focus on. They do make calls, but they're trying to make warmer calls. But they're not making cold calls to a cold list like an inside salesperson. We call that the reality of your lead generation. We also have a video called Ramping New Salespeople where we talk about it. There's one question I wanted to take here.
Yeah.
Oh, Jay's question?
Yeah. Let's do that one next. Is it possible to have too high of a close ratio?
Yeah, and he said, is it indication you're underpricing your offering? Is 20% a good close ratio, but 80% too high? Yeah, well, here's what I see. I don't know if it has to do with underpricing, but for most people, if your close ratio is 80%, it means that you're only in front of people that are almost closed before you get there. So they're highly referred. And if you need to sell more than you're selling today, doubling the amount of people that are highly referred at that same close ratio is really hard. So what's going to happen is you're going to have to manufacture through other sources, through inside sales and marketing. You're going to have to manufacture more activity. And many times to grow sales by a bunch. When that happens, it's going to drive down your close ratio. So we see the people that sell the most recurring revenue usually have close ratios in the 20, 25%. I know people with 15% close ratios, that sell $8,000 or $9,000 a month of recurring revenue. So the answer is you need to figure that out. And so most people, if they're that extreme high on their close ratio, they're usually not the people that are generating the most, if that makes sense.
Right.
All right, we're top of the hour. Do you want to take one more question? This is awesome.
Yeah. Joel's question here. So he says we have several services sold and different quantities that contribute to MRR. How do you calculate revenue per seat?
Yeah. So you got to this is a problem for everybody. One, you probably don't have the same margin on all of those things. So we have this what we call the MRR evaluator. We're going to make you put things into groups and say how much of that MRR is your core offering, the things you do for everybody that you've calculated at the right at hopefully the right margin. And then how many of those are like extra things you sell, like we sell backup separately, and we call that other recurring revenue. So we're going to teach you how to categorize that revenue so that you can get an actual seat price and an actual margin. Most people that ask that question don't like the answer once they figure it out. I'll share that with you.
Yep.
We're not saying you have to have only one offering, but at our MSP, there's only one, but you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black. Mainly because we know what we have to offer to impact their business results and drive value. And we're not going to offer less than that, right? That's what
Yep.
our whole company is built on that. And we'd rather say no to customers that are not our ideal customer fit. We look for an ideal customer profile, and when we find them, we close a high percentage of those. What brings our close ratio down is that if they don't fall into that and they don't want to buy our true value, we just choose to move on than sell them some crappy silver program that lowers our margin, increases our noise, and ruins our life.
Okay.
All right, there were some other questions we didn't get to, Bob, but we're over the hour. If you still want answer to the question, you can either you can email support@truemethods.com if you really want it answered, or if you just email gary.promo@truemethods.com, one of my growth experts will reach out to you and they can answer any question that you have. They're happy to do it, and they'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing with my IT process and our training portal.
Okay, great. All right, thanks everyone.
Okay, Bob, thanks for your help today. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is great. This is great.
Okay, make it a great day.
Take care.